Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show. And today's great episode we have for you. We've got some stashes for your rebuilds. We've got some playoff advice. And we're looking forward to the 2025 draft class. Hell yeah. Matt is back in the house. Matt English, how are you doing? Glad to have you.
Glad to kind of be back, man. I've been absent for a while. Life takes over, and then just finished up a knee surgery, so I'm laid up with nothing else really to do except sit behind my computer and go to town, I guess. So,
well, the question is, I asked you earlier, could you beat Christian McCaffrey in a foot race right now?
Yeah, I could. It would hurt. I'm sure I would ruin everything I just did, but I got that guy.
All right, Kyle Shanahan, you hear that? Sign this guy up. He's ready. He's ready to go.
And see, the thing is I don't have millions riding on my legs, so I can let it go a little bit more.
I think you could take him down. I know you could take him down in fantasy football, though, as long as you don't overthink it. Yes.
Yeah, look, not drafting.
All right. So last night I did the week 13 recaps. We're heading into week 14 of our Dynasty fantasy football seasons. That means playoffs are next week in most leagues. For some of you, week 14 is a de facto playoff game, as you need to win to get in, or you're playing for playoff seeding. Maybe you want that bye. Plenty of moves to be made this week, and we're going to give you some stashes to look forward to so that you can maybe be in the mix next year if you are on the outside looking in right now. Just think about, I'm going to throw out the low-hanging fruit. Famous Jameis, Monday night. How many teams out there stashed Jameis Winston going back to last year? And now, Matt, are getting to reap the rewards of that Heisman Trophy winning, national champion winning, Florida State Seminole, Jameis Winston. Was that close enough to a Jameis speech? Was that close?
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. You got to get some sort of life lesson. A life lesson needs to be in there about leaving it all out on the field. We'll come together as one. Well, he's got some pieces.
You don't let anybody outwork you in this game. That's what Dynasty is. And that's what it is right now. If you're on the outside looking in, you're one of the bottom 4 teams in your roster. Don't kid yourself. Right now is the time to get you into the playoffs in the 2025 season. This is where it starts. You've been making trades, scooping up draft picks for your veterans, but right now you got guys that are free out there. Free. Or injured players that you'll be able to trade for. If your trade deadline just passed, you'll be able to trade for them in a couple weeks because they're still considered injured and maybe under the radar.
They're valued lower.
We're digging deep here. All right. So I asked Matt to come up with 3 guys. I've got a couple of my own. Matt's got 4. Uh-oh. All right. Well, I don't need to hear about Ben Sinnott and JT Sanders again. Okay, you can talk about them though if you want. All right,
we'll get to it.
Okay, Matt. So who's your first stash?
Okay, so I'll start with quarterbacks. Okay, now I've got 2 quarterbacks to keep stashed going into 2025. One of them kind of makes sense based on what we've seen on the production of the current starter. They traded for this guy. And really, we had not seen a whole lot of, but I've got Sam Howell as a stash. I think this is a big year for Seattle. I think we've seen Geno Smith at his best. I think we've seen him at his worst, and I think Seattle's going to move on. I know DK's locked up in a newer deal. They still have JSN. Tyler Lockett they do have through next year. We'll see if that works. But they got 2 young running backs as well, and Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. And if you want to dig deeper, they also have McIntosh. So they've got lots of young talent around. And I think with Sam Howell, they traded for the guy. They absolutely traded for the guy, and Geno's running out of time, and he hasn't looked that great this year. So if you can pick up Sam Howell on waivers, you're already, mailing it in, probably have been for a couple of weeks. It's a guy just to go ahead and throw on your bench because, one, he's not going to drive up any total points for you, not this week. So he's a safe grab. And I've got another guy that's a longer shot, right? So it's I think Sam Howell's an easy grab at this stage in the game if you're rebuilding. Why not?
Absolutely. This is a perfect prototype. This is what we're looking for. Yes.
I feel like that's an easy one, right?
Yes.
Let's go deeper. Let's go real deep.
We're going deeper.
Yeah, let's go dark. Let's go super dark deep here. And I got Tyson Bagent or Bagnet or Baggett or whatever. Tyson Bagent, the backup there in Chicago. Okay.
Bagent, yes.
Yeah. One, he's not bad. He's actually a good quarterback. He throws the ball well. We got to see him a little bit last year when there were some injuries there in Chicago, but with Justin Fields, I don't think he's bad. I think he's actually going to be traded from Chicago, and I think he'll be kind of in that like opportunistic role where if someone goes down and he goes in, he'll be able to take over. I just think he's going to benefit from being in a new environment. They're going to bring in an older quarterback to help Caleb if that's who they really think they're going to build the franchise around.
Hey, they don't have Eberflus got fired there.
I call him Flubber.
They're in the right. They can only go. They can only go up from here. Rest of the year.
Okay, they can only go up. But Caleb Williams is a quarterback that was the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Correct.
That is correct. Yes.
You would expect that guy to at least run up to the line with 30 seconds left. No one's calling a timeout. At least maybe speed it up, call a timeout, spike the ball, do something, right? Just saying, he ain't all there either, man. That ain't all coaching. Huh. You played football that long. Yeah. You made $4 million at USC. You know how to clock a football.
No. Caleb Williams is just fulfilling my prediction that he was the next Jameis Winston. And that is something totally something Jameis at this point in his career, he probably would have been even smart enough to spike it. Or at least, snap it quicker. I don't know.
Run like a fake spike and then hit somebody deep or try to. That's what Jameis would have done. At least it would have been a valiant effort.
Jameis would have ran across the line of scrimmage and tried faking guys out and then thrown it for a touchdown, mind you. But, of course, it wouldn't have counted. But, it's Jameis. He's a national treasure. What can we say? You got to love the guy. I don't know.
Those would be my 2 quarterback stashes. Okay, those
are excellent stashes. Perfect examples of what we're looking for here. Cheap, completely free, and opportunity. They like to sling it. They got that Fitz magic in them, right? That's what we're looking for. Yes. All right. I didn't pick up a quarterback. I didn't pick a quarterback because my idea is any quarterback. Just bodies. You want bodies at quarterback that could possibly see a game or two. That's what you're looking at here when you're deep diving. You're not going to grab some franchise quarterback. Okay, maybe Sam Howell could pull it out and string together 2 or 3 seasons because we've seen him do it in Washington. He had a season that was fantasy relevant, I'll say. Obviously, the Commanders decided to move on and have a much better option there right now. But, you know, Sam Howell has a totally legit chance to take over in Seattle next year. I love that. Love it. And Badgen as well. Badgen was a solid player last year out of nowhere. And I mean, he's still free out there. So,
dude, and that's the thing.
yes,
Look at it. It says it right there. He's 6'3". He's actually a big dude, and he sees over the line well. It's I can think of a lot worse stashes. You know,
yes,
to throw
quarterback
out there.
has
a good one, man.
Confidence is everything at the quarterback position, and he exuded it last year when he came in and had his opportunity. And he was confident enough to tell Caleb Williams that this is a quarterback competition this past offseason.
Yeah.
So,
dude, he reminds me of Brett Favre. He reminds me of Brett Favre, and I love me some Brett Favre. So, yeah, I
think we all love ourselves some Brett Favre. Yeah,
dude,
absolutely.
You want to talk about national treasures?
For sure.
Yes. I love me some Brett Favre, bro. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the. You got some running backs or a running back? Because I do. I know I do.
I have a Well, go ahead because I just reeled off two. Give me a running back.
So mine is more of a sneaky one, and this isn't dumpster diving here. This is a little higher end, right? This guy's on every dynasty roster out there, but the key is that Najee Harris is a free agent this offseason. So, who does Pittsburgh have? Who does Pittsburgh have next season? I'm sure they'll bring in a banger body. We talked off air, and we'll get into it a little bit more. But this draft class coming up, the 2025 draft class, is just loaded with NFL-ready prototype 5'10", 5'11", 215 to 225 size running backs. Perfect for the Steelers to fill in for the absence of Najee Harris. However, when you've got a guy like Jaylen Warren, who knows the system and is that I just see Chase Brown in what when I look at Jaylen Warren. He's going to have the opportunity next year to up his touch percentage from where he's at right now. He's at probably like a 60-40, 55-45 split with Najee. He could take over and get up to a 55 or 60% share there in Pittsburgh. And we've all seen it from Warren. He's explosive. He exudes Steelers grit. And I think that, if you've watched, Matt, have you been able to check out any of the Gruden's new show?
No.
Gruden signed up with Barstool, and I am telling you, man, you've got to watch it. If you love football, you got to watch it.
Well, I love
Gruden
Chucky too, so that's an easy call for me.
Dude, Gruden dissects these games, and it is awesome. And then at the end of his show, he has these Gruden grinders, he calls them, and his first edition of it, Jaylen Warren was one of the guys that he had. So Jaylen Warren is just a baller. He will do whatever it takes for the team, and he will do whatever it takes for your fantasy team as well. He's a nice fit at your RB2, RB3 type slot, and I think he's going to get some more production next season. So he's going to cost you a little more than Sam Howell for sure. But if Najee Harris doesn't get hurt the rest of the year, Warren's price tag will stay cheap, and you want to get ahead of the game on Warren rather than wait until you see that the Steelers draft a running back in the 5th round, and then all of a sudden Warren's anointed as the chosen one come next May. So stay ahead of the game. That's where I'm getting at with Warren.
Yeah, and look, he's one of those guys, even in best ball formats, he's a guy you can pick up now and have on your roster that could actually fuel you to a win, right? We've seen how the Steelers operate with their running backs. Sometimes Jaylen can get off, especially in the pass catching. So he's a good grab no matter what you're trying to do. The price you pay is a variant on that. But I think it's a great call, especially with the comparison to Chase Brown. Both of us were extremely high on Chase Brown going in to this year. Yes, they brought in Zach Moss, and we saw how that turned out. Their running game really wasn't great. He got hurt, and then Chase took over, and all of a sudden the Bengals had a running game, at least from a fantasy perspective. So I think that's a great comparison, and probably something that, they may not. But after some of the things we talked about with this draft class, and as soon as you brought up Jaylen Warren and said bring in a banger, I couldn't help but think about it. That was perfect. That's a great call. The running backs I have all in the same backfield. Okay, they're both rookies this year in Denver's backfield, in Blake Watson and Audric Estime. So Estime's he's not on a waiver wire. You're going to have to trade for him. Fortunately enough for me, I traded for him in some rebuild scenarios early. But I love his usage already this year. I do think Javante's on his way out. I just do. I think Jaleel McLaughlin will be there, but Blake Watson's more of the darker run. You can absolutely grab him off waivers and just a cheap grab. And just to see what happens. Maybe he supplants. He and Jaleel McLaughlin run similar, but Blake Watson costs a lot less. So those are my two running backs there. I just think they're good grabs, man. And I think Estime's worth the trade capital that you're going to have to give up to get him. I think he is the lead back next year. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree on this being a great stash as in Estime. Blake Watson hasn't gotten his opportunity yet, but that doesn't mean that he's forgotten.
Here's the important thing with Watson, though. He was retained over other veterans going into this year. So with that in mind, they let go of P. Ryan. They didn't care. They went young, and they're still making a playoff run. He's a guy that I just think you can get practically for free. That you can stash away, who has a decent chance of getting significant boost in play time, who maybe it's Watson and Estime is the 1-2 punch moving forward. I don't know. I really don't know. But for his cost, forget about it.
Oh, yeah. He's absolutely free. No doubt about it. I mean, he's only rostered in what? I mean, look here. It shows right here. Rostered in 19% of leagues. So he's obviously plentifully available, and I love the thought process here. It's a Sean Payton offense. You can remember back to the New Orleans days and when they were running Kamara and Ingram out there, and I when the rumor was out there this offseason that Javonte was going to get cut. Now we knew that wasn't going to happen. The guy was still on a rookie contract. There was no reason for it, but it made me start thinking about that and I saw McLaughlin and Estime as his Kamara and Ingram. And even if that's the case, Watson could easily be the third guy there and then get work whenever McLaughlin / Kamara gets hurt. And we all knew that whoever New Orleans had there as their backups, they always produced when they came in. They always got work. Yep. And so it's a great example. These guys, you can, between Jaylen Warren and Audric Estime, who are both rostered, these are guys who you can get as throw-in in deals. Obviously, Warren's a little more expensive, but let's say when you're rebuilding, you want to find ways to split asset. You want to split your better asset into two good assets, right? So if you're trading a higher end wide receiver, like say, a T. Higgins, okay, who's going to pop this offseason when he signs his next contract, that's the time to sell T. Higgins. So you sell T. Higgins for another decent wide receiver and Jaylen Warren, and boom, you've got two solid starters then. So you can easily do the same thing with Estime. Estime is somebody you can just get thrown in on a deal right now. And so it's exactly
what I did. I just did it like 4 or 5 weeks ago. That's it.
Yeah.
Get it as a throw-in. Yep. Who you got next, man?
All right. I've got I'm going a little higher end here too. I didn't go as deep as you did, which is fine. We got both ends of the spectrum here.
Mhm.
I'm going to an injured guy, your boy down in New Orleans, and that's Rashid Shaheed. All right. Now, Shaheed, if you look at his numbers before the injury, this guy, this guy was showing just oozing with his talent, right? Which he had done. And I know you and I have talked about Kevontae Turpin from Dallas. And
Mhm.
that's basically what Shaheed had been in New Orleans for the past few seasons. Now this year, Kubiak comes in and he's like, this guy's got to get the ball. And he
Yeah.
made Shaheed the centerpiece of the Saints offense, really. I mean, he was the chess piece. We all know that Kamara got all the work and yada yada, but the Shaheed was the chess piece that was making the defense move around and creating openings for Kamara, creating space for Olave to operate, and then taking the top off the defense. I mean, how many deep touchdowns did he have before he got hurt? He had three
Three.
touchdowns there. I guarantee they were all over 25 yards. And
Yeah.
this guy will be back next year. He'll still be underpriced at the end of this offseason. His value won't recover until after the draft, potentially, once the depth charts start coming back into focus here.
Right.
You can still, Olave hasn't retired yet from concussions, so I wish the best for Chris Olave in that regard, but I'm just saying here the opportunity is wide open
Yeah.
for Rashid Shaheed to even improve on what he had started this season with.
Yeah, and the other thing too is some of the young receivers that the Saints do haven't shown the ability, one, to stay healthy, two, to actually replace any of that production. They've had to look elsewhere to the tight ends and the pieces like Taysom Hill, who is now gone. So, yeah, perfect example of a stash. I had a couple of guys at receiver for stash, very similar, right? A little bit higher end in Rashee Rice and Christian Kirk, right? Both in the same situation, both on IR. Christian Kirk, I don't think will be a Jaguar next year, which is good for him. Where he goes, I don't know, but I think it's worth the gamble. Rashee Rice is going to be a Chief, and we all saw what he was capable of when he came back, we'll say. I mean, immediately thrust into wide receiver one targeting. I mean, you can look at his targets, 7, 6, 14 before he was done. Look at his snaps,
Yeah.
78, 83, 74. I mean, my goodness. I mean, if he doesn't get hurt, what does his production look like throughout the year? But right now, you get him all. I mean, you can get him for pennies on the dollar. So,
well, I don't know if it's pennies on the dollar, but you can get him
in
cheaper
my
than
opinion,
what is.
I picked him up for pennies on the dollar, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You can pull up the trade I did to get Rashee Rice a few weeks back, trying to shed off, higher end assets for a rebuild. So, not a
He was the
rebuild, but
perfect.
just a young team that needs, other pieces. So,
Absolutely. So, yeah, I grabbed Rashee Rice in one of my rebuilds a few weeks ago as well, but I wasn't able to grab him at the deadline. I really pushed for him in one of my rebuilding teams. I threw the guy Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, and Rico Dowdle. Couldn't pull it off, but he was a contender. I figured, hey, Mike Evans is a huge buy right now for contending teams. So couldn't make it happen. I would have been willing to even throw in a draft pick to get it done. The guy just told me, look, I don't need 3 more assets. I don't need that many assets, and I really don't want to give up Rashee Rice, which I totally don't blame him. Obviously, I was trying to trade for him. But here's the question I have for you, Matt. Where would you place Rashee Rice, like if we were doing, because we know he'll be back next year, right?
Mhm.
But there will be the potential. There's the potential and the likelihood of the suspension as well hanging over him. Now,
Mhm.
here's the question: where would you rank him? Where would you draft him in regards to wide receivers in a new startup? If we were to start it this weekend, let's say, who would you have just ahead of him?
Started
Who would
this
you have
weekend.
just behind him?
Started
Yeah,
this
we're starting it
weekend.
this weekend. This weekend, we're doing the. Would you have? Okay, here I'll throw you some names.
Okay.
JSN,
I would take him ahead.
Chris Olave.
Well, when I say I'd take him ahead, I would take
You
JSN over Rishi Rice.
you would
Right now.
take JSN over Rishi
Yes.
Rice. Okay. Chris Olave.
Rishi Rice.
Okay. Drake London.
Rice.
You take Rice over Drake London. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's
And that's
spicy.
simple. One, Drake London with a supposed to be better quarterback has not put up the numbers we want him to put up. Rishi Rice, we know who his quarterback is, and we know what his numbers look like with that quarterback, regardless of suspension, regardless of Xavier Worthy and whatever other pieces they bring in. Rice has the chemistry with Mahomes. I hate it, but it's what it is.
Yeah, fair enough. Let me think here. I'm trying to go through that tier. JSN. Well, I have DK in there, but yeah, I would take Rashee Rice over DK.
Yep.
Just age.
Here's a fun one. How about
Age-wise,
Chris Godwin? Chris Godwin or
I would
Rishi
take
Rice?
Rice.
Would
I'd
you?
take Rice over God. Dynasty-wise, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, Dynasty. Yeah, that's true. Okay.
you got 4 years of difference.
That's true.
Who else is younger? I want to get a younger body because like Nico Collins, you've obviously got ahead of him.
Yeah. Waddle?
Waddle's a good Waddle would be a good comparison. I would take Rashee Rice.
Okay.
Would you take Waddle?
No, I'd take Rice.
How about
He's
Garrett
the de facto
Wilson?
one. He's the de facto one, and that's what we have to remember. That's it.
Absolutely.
There's a
What
lot
about
of dudes at this stage of the game that I would still take Rice over that went in second and third rounds of startups. I mean, I think everything we needed to see really for his evaluation of what he is when he's healthy.
So we
got
had
to see
that
the 3-game sample. So I mean,
that
look, I
clump
brought
this
up the
last
trade in
year.
which I required Rashee Rice, and I felt
Yeah.
I got a great deal on this. I traded away. Now, this was November 3rd.
Okay.
So pretty much a month ago. I traded Romeo Dobbs and a 26 first rounder for Rishi Rice and a 25 second rounder.
Yeah.
I feel like
Then,
I got a steal there because Dobbs to me is
oh, absolutely.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I basically traded away just a roster fodder and a first round pick in 2 years for this year's second and Rishi Rice in a league that I need receivers. So, and I'm also in contention for the top pick, number 1 or number 2.
Right.
So the more picks I have, the better anyway. So, yeah, I think he's a wonderful stash, and he might cost differently than what I paid, but I think you can work a deal to get him, especially if it's from a contender and you don't have a deadline or your deadline is this week. Now would be the time to try and go get this guy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the kind of like I was using Mike Evans. You use Mike Evans and some other contending piece, or even throw a draft pick like you did. There's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't, if I'm rebuilding, I wouldn't try and trade my 25s, but I wouldn't be opposed to doing Romeo Dobbs and a late 25 first. I'll say that right now. There's no wide receiver coming out in the 25 class anywhere close to this guy that you're going to get in the late first of our rookie drafts. To me, there's only Tet McMillan, and then there's a bunch of dudes like Luther Burden's fallen off the map. Not completely, but I'm just saying he's fallen. All right. And I'm easily taking Rashee Rice over Burton. And who's the other guy? I can't think. There's Trey Harris from Ole Miss. There's just a bunch of other dudes.
Yeah.
Right. None of them
Colorado kid too, but is he going to play DB or is he going to play wide receiver? I mean, there's
yeah.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter, the talent is
looking
just
for
oozing.
Charles Woodson Jr.
Yeah, but
now hold on.
Me,
though. If you have IDP in your league, and he does play both,
right,
that would be something.
Yeah, but the corners don't get many points, right? And if he's good,
interceptions and touchdowns, yeah,
sure. But
would it be nice if like he could fill in as a cornerback, but he put up receiving yards and like a receiving touchdown?
Well,
right,
sure. I just what worries me is drafting him in the top 5 of our rookie drafts, right? And expecting him to just be a wide receiver 1, like like Neighbors or Harrison. That's the talent is there, but the guy is not a polished wide receiver. You have to understand that. Like he put up monster numbers this last week against Shit Creek State. I can't remember who Colorado was playing, but they won like 52-0, so they could pad their Heisman hopeful numbers. But Travis Hunter, it's real key where he ends up going, because if he gets to go to somewhere like Jacksonville, where they already have a Brian Thomas there,
right,
and Christian Kirk coming back, where Travis Hunter can just kind of come in and be a 3rd or 4th wide receiver. Is Christian Kirk a free agent? I don't know.
I don't remember.
I know you had him.
I'd have to look it up. I'm pretty sure he just won't be a Jaguar.
But regardless, the point being is he's going to benefit by going to a team where he just has to come in and be a 3rd or 4th wide receiver, and he doesn't get the responsibility of if he goes to like the Raiders, right? If he goes to the Raiders, yes, they have Jacoby Myers, but they're looking for him to be their number 1, right? Jacoby Myers is the perfect number 2, number 3 wide receiver on your team. They're looking for Travis Hunter then to come in and be the number 1. And that's a lot of responsibility, especially if he wants to play defensive back too. It
takes a special player to do both. It really does. That's why you don't see a whole lot of them anymore.
No, the NFL is just too tough to do it both ways. I mean, Deion Sanders was the ultimate athlete, right? And he only got a few looks at wide receiver when they tried doing it with him in San Francisco and Dallas.
They were gimmick plays just to get the ball in his hands because of his speed. Absolutely.
Right. And that's kind of what worries me about drafting Travis Hunter, is that's what he'll end up being. So I'm very tentative to push the draft button on a Travis Hunter this upcoming draft, but we'll see. I mean, who knows? The draft process will unfold, and who knows? Maybe he'll come out and just be like, "No, I'm going full-time wide receiver. I don't even want to play corner." It remains to be seen, but that's why we get to talk about it now and let you all know about a guy like that. So
I will say this: for a non-injured stash on wide receiver, I would look at guys that kind of fit the mold of like a Luke McCaffrey. I think he's a wonderful stash. We've seen little flashes of how he could be used. You start looking at Ladd McConkey and what he's doing, how he's utilized there in LA with the Chargers. And I could see a lot of that translating to Luke McCaffrey in Washington. And I'll talk more about Washington here in a little bit when we get to tight end, or when I get to tight end.
No, but Luke McCaffrey's perfect because you have an older producing wide receiver there in McLaurin, and then just a bunch of bodies, right? There's Diami Brown, Noah Brown. There's all these guys, Olamide Zaccheaus. Right?
That's it.
they don't have a true number 2, and McCaffrey has the skill set actually to be a Ladd McConkey, right?
And the name brand.
Yes.
Very important. The name.
Absolutely. And in Dynasty, value sells and names sell. And so you get any inkling of hype of Luke McCaffrey, just his last name alone can get you a second rounder.
Oh, yeah.
I know I had to pay 3rd or 4th round prices for him. if there's some kind of hype and I'm stacked at wide receiver, I have no problem shipping him for a second rounder this offseason if he gets some hype, because the Commanders don't really draft a wide receiver because they like what they see from McCaffrey in camp. And he's looking like he's going to start opposite of McLaurin next year going into the season. Yep. Now let's get into the tight end stashes you've got. I know you're itching to talk about your guys here at tight end.
Yeah, so real quick, one of them in Jatavian Sanders was hyped going into the draft, fell a little bit. But I think you could see early on there in Carolina how he'll be utilized. He immediately was earning play time. I say immediately. Within the first few weeks, he started earning playing time. His snap share has increased throughout the year. He got red zone looks. I think Bryce Young was pretty comfortable with him. So was Andy Dalton. I just think he's a good fit in that system, and he's super athletic. I know he got hurt a couple of weeks back, but he's supposed to be back. They're hoping he's back this week. But he's a good stash. You're not going to find him on the waiver wire. But like we mentioned before with some of the running backs, he's an easy throw into a deal, especially in tight end premium leagues where that could come back and really help you. And then the other guy you haven't seen a whole lot of based on what's in front of him, and that's Ben Sinnott. I was super high on him as a draft prospect, and I still think he'll be that guy. But Zach Ertz is in front of him. Zach Ertz is very familiar with Cliff Kingsbury's system. There's familiarity there, and let's be honest, Zach Ertz is old, but he is filled in nicely. It's not just him out there filling space. He's putting up numbers, and he does a very good job. And, kudos to the Washington, to Dan Quinn and his staff, what they put together, because it's not – I thought Ben said it might be seen earlier based on how young they were going to be and how much inexperience they had. But here they are in the midst of a playoff run. And they're going to lean on their veterans the rest of the way. And I just think Sinnott's an easy, simple throw in if he's rostered. I know people started dumping him off to the waivers about mid-season. So maybe depending on your league, you can pick him up off waivers, but just a great stash. Either one of these guys. Sanders could probably help you in the playoffs, but Sinnott will help you in 25, 26. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sinnott is sort of in a like what Noah Gray is, right, in Kansas City. Noah Gray for years now has been anointed as the passing of the torch from Kelsey to Noah Gray, right? But Kelsey doesn't want to give it up, and he's just going to keep playing. And Zach Ertz is the same way. This guy, he gets hurt, but he comes back. Like, Kelsey stayed way healthier than Zach Ertz, but when you look at Zach Ertz's production, man, when he's playing, the guy just eats up targets. And Washington needs guys that a rookie quarterback can lean on going into a potential playoff push here. And so, yes, Zach Ertz is going to get all the snaps that he can muster up at his age, but Ben Sinnott here is, as long as he's playing and out on the field and just getting some reps, that's good. Like, he's not out here getting no snaps. He's not being he's not a healthy scratch here. He is out on the field, and he's a very versatile player. If you watch his film from K-State, like, he can do a lot of different things. And I think that we've been getting spoiled lately these last couple of years with Laporta and now Bowers this year, that we're coming to expect these tight ends
instant
to come
production.
in and boom, instant production, right? That is not the case, generally speaking, over history with this position. It takes 3 or 4 years for these guys to hit. And so there's nothing wrong with stashing a tight end on your taxi. I mean, depending on how you want to roster construct and blah, 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 it's, Ben Sinnott is easily somebody that, I mean, Zach Ertz could get cut this offseason because of his salary or whatever. And then Sinnott gets anointed. And if you already have a tight end, then boom, you can trade him for something. because his value pops. Or you trade your other guy and you roll the dice on Sinnott being the guy. So there's a lot of options here with somebody like Sinnott. I still like the talent. He's obviously getting reps, and Washington just simply is a better team than pretty much all of us expected this year. And, kudos to Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn, like he said. So don't forget about this guy, him and Luke McCaffrey. They're both there. It's a good franchise now, somehow.
I mean, well, look, the thing to look at with Sinnott is look at what Ertz is doing. Now take Ertz away and put in a younger, more athletic tight end who now has a year under his belt, understands the system, where he's supposed to be, what he's supposed to do, what his OC expects of him, what his quarterback expects. Like you said, it takes some time. Last year was an anomaly with Laporta and Kincaid. We're used to the Kelsey and the Andrews and the Evan Ingram, but for the most part, those guys took time to become what they were. The Laporta, and look at what Laporta and Kincaid are this year. Very boom busty. Kincaid's just kind of giving you 10 points, but no.
How about Trey McBride? Trey McBride, I threw in deals. I threw Trey McBride into deals after his rookie season because he sat behind Zach Ertz.
And look, here it is. That's the perfect
And now
example.
Look at him.
Yeah, perfect example.
Absolutely.
Zach Ertz will not be there forever. Just know that.
No. And like I said, I don't have Zach Ertz's contract up here right in front of me, but I don't know what it's going to cost them next year to retain him. But I don't be shocked if he is a free agent come this offseason.
Yeah, cap casualty.
Exactly. A cap casualty. Zach Ertz still has something in the tank. He goes somewhere else and has a decent season because he just has it left in him. I mean, Ertz is a phenomenal player. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer because injuries hurt his career for sure. But man, the guy is produced going back to Philly, and they were trying to replace him with Goddard all those years, and he still produced. And then got traded to Arizona and put up the numbers, and now this year as well. Super cheap for many guys who scooped up Zach Ertz, and it was well worth it.
Yep.
But all right. So we talked about the running backs that I had Jaylen Warren, you had the Denver backs. Let's get into the 2025 class and some of the options that are out there for this 25 class. We all know by now about Ashton Genty, and of course you want him on your dynasty team, right? And the argument this offseason going into the draft will probably be Genty versus Tet McMillan. And to me, I like the wide receiver. If you look at my rankings for the 25 class, I do have McMillan ahead of Genty, but that's strictly because of the position. It really is. And you can go back and forth on it. If you go back in time, like a few years ago, the Najee Harris, Jamar Chase class, right? Najee Harris ended up going ahead of Jamar Chase in many, many dynasty drafts. Okay. And now look at them. All right. Now, I think that Genty is a better prospect than Najee Harris, but not that much. I mean, Najee was really anointed that year. You had Javonte Williams in that class. You had Travis Etienne in that class. And Najee was definitely ahead of both of them. Now, there were a few that might have put Javonte Williams ahead of him, but obviously we see where that came down. So Najee was definitely the running back one, and Jamar Chase was the wide receiver one. You had Waddle in that class too. But anyway, you had those two guys, and it came down to what position you wanted. Now, in that case, it ended up being the wide receiver was better. But if you go back further, there were other seasons where the running back did end up being better. So that could be the case this year. I don't know. I've loved watching Tet McMillan, but honestly, when you're going up against Big 12 competition, those kind of corners, I would have loved to see Tet in the SEC going up against better cornerbacks just to see what he has. But dude, the guy is 6'4", 6'5". He looks like Mike Evans out there. Just his body, the way he handles himself out there, he really does. And so I guess before we get in deeper, what are your thoughts on those two up top right now, Matt?
Yeah, I'll kind of go on the edge of it. It really just depends on what you need and where you fall in the draft, right? And then that also, if you look recently at running backs, how many have, outside of 2 years ago with Bijan and Gibbs, how many running backs really pop year one? How many out of all of them? That not many. But how many wide receivers pop in year one in recent history? A lot. So with that in mind, it really just depends on what you're trying to do. What does your 26 draft class look like? Can you sacrifice 25? You can sacrifice 25. Maybe you're pulling the trigger on Genty right out the gates because you don't need him to pop right away. Doesn't matter where he goes, what he does, much like a Marshawn Lloyd, right? He's in Green Bay behind a stud and he's hurt or was. Either way, it really just gets into what you actually need and how you evaluate it. There's going to be some leagues where I think Genty's the better grab at one, and there's going to be others where I don't.
Absolutely.
It really just gets into, I really don't think you should be drafting on need. I really don't. But if you have the first or second pick in this year's draft, and you're going to take the pick regardless of your offers, then it gets into exactly what do you need and what can you sacrifice or not. Otherwise, I don't know. It always just depends on the league, man, and what you're looking at,
right?
Whether you trade it or not or move out of it. But if you're absolutely firing off a pick, you got to know what your 25 season's probably going to project like. If you have a shot to go playoff bound, draft the wide receiver. Better chance of it actually paying out right out the gates.
Yeah, it landing spot will come into play for sure. If Genty lands in Dallas, well, anybody that goes to Dallas gets extra hype. Is it warranted? No, but it's late in value.
Running back at that high right now. They didn't do it last year when they absolutely should have.
Right.
Yeah.
But maybe Jerry learns his lesson. I don't know what's going on in that guy's head. He's just bored. He has so much money. He doesn't know what to do with it. So he feels like he's got to toy around with this NFL team, right? And that's really all it is. It's just a game for him. And I don't know. It's frustrating for me as a fantasy owner of Dallas Cowboys players. But at the same time, come on, man. Just get a football guy in there to help you out, right? That's it's frustrating, really.
You can't tell that man anything, dude.
No.
He played football. He knows.
Dak just gave McCarthy a vote of confidence this morning, if you didn't see that on Good Morning Football. So
that's good for
we'll see it. We'll see how that rolls out, because I really doubt McCarthy is back next year, but
maybe either one of them.
Maybe neither one of them. Very true. Very true. So let's move down the board. We'll go into the next portion, which brings in some quarterbacks into play. And right now we're looking at basically Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. I like Jalen Milroe, but you could add a couple other quarterbacks in there. Jackson Dart. I don't know if you've got any other quarterbacks, but this 25 class, and I know you snarled when I said Jalen Milroe, but hear me out. Just hear me out. I have Jalen Milroe as the number 3 overall right now, but I would not pick him at 3. I would trade back from, if I have the 3 or 4, I'm going to trade back to wherever Jalen Milroe slides in here, if I'm really needing a quarterback, that is. Because I see Jalen Milroe, when I watch Milroe play, dude, it reminds me, he looks just like Jalen Hurts. And what happened with Hurts, right? The guy couldn't throw. college, that was the whole narrative. He couldn't throw. Went to Oklahoma, tried throwing a little more, did throw a little more, but then he got drafted, fortunately enough for him, into the right situation. If you remember, he was behind Carson Wentz in his disaster downturn to his career. But then Hurts was able to come in, had a good year. Then they brought in AJB, and now we know where we're at with Jalen Hurts. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen with Milroe, but the main reason that I like Milroe of all these quarterbacks in this draft is because A, they're not very good, and then B, he can run. And he can run his ass off way better than any of these other dudes in this class. And when I'm looking for ceiling, that's where you're going to capitalize with Jalen Milroe. And he's going to be cheaper than Shadir or Cam Ward. So that's my thoughts on the quarterbacks.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say I'm like the perfect evaluator. There's two positions I trust myself more than I would trust anyone else when I'm evaluating a rookie coming in. And that's quarterbacks and running backs. And it doesn't matter why I feel that way, but I'll tell you this. I did miss last year on Bo Nix. Bo Nix was the one quarterback that went completely under my radar and I had not near enough love for. But I will say this too. Everything else on my quarterbacks, I feel like I was right on my evaluations of. And I think I got to see all of it play out. It's with the exception of J.J. McCarthy. And Penix didn't go in a situation where he was going to see the field. He might now.
Not yet.
Yeah, might
Not
now.
yet.
It's still incomplete, right? But
Not yet.
Either which way, this quarterback draft, for what I know now, before I dove into actual film, Cam Ward is the creme de la creme to me because of the arm strength, because of his ability to move. It hurts to say that. I don't like the U. I don't like his okay, but I just for say from a skill set, I like what I see out of him and what he's capable of. I think a lot of the other guys that are available that are going to be drafted, I just think it's all fool's gold and trash and a wasted pick. I will gladly let everyone else pick these guys. Gladly. Go ahead. Take those guys. So all the receivers, running backs, and other positions fall right to me, late first, early second. Beautiful. Beautiful. Go draft
This
that
20, this 25 class, I am just focused on the running back position, honestly, because like I said, you got Ted McMillan.
I'm higher on the receivers than you are. I'm higher on the receivers than you are.
Fair enough.
And that's fine. And look, when you get into film, you're going to see some things that kind of jump off the page for some guys that'll turn your opinion. But yes, the running backs are where the focus is. They're much deeper this year. There's more receivers than I think we initially thought. But there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks dressed up to match last year's draft class that aren't even close. So you gotta be aware of that. You like Milroe, that's fine. I like Cam Ward. Outside of Cam Ward, I'm not high on any other quarterback at this moment. That could change. And it also gets into where do you get them? If I could get myself what's Georgia's quarterback's name? I don't know, it doesn't matter.
Carson Beck.
Get him
Carson Beck.
If I get him as a free agent or at the end of the fourth round, okay, who cares? At that point, it's decent,
right.
But not second, third. There's just it's not. You're not going to see four quarterbacks should not be going off the board in the first round of your rookie draft this year if you're in a competitive league.
No, and that's what it comes down to. What league are you in? Are you in where everybody's intuitively seeing what we're seeing with the running backs, where to me, there's extreme value in the second round of these rookie drafts at the running back position. Like to me, you've got Genty up top, of course. Then there's Marion Hampton. We talked about Caleb Johnson off air from Iowa. There's the two Ohio State running backs. Ollie Gordon's fallen off the map, but that doesn't mean he's fallen off the NFL team's maps. Okay, he's still got the size and speed. just because Oklahoma State hasn't used him properly doesn't mean an NFL team can't use him properly. Okay. There's Rocket Sanders, who used to be 2 years ago, he was the top running back in this class when he was back at Arkansas. Now he's popping at South Carolina. And I love that dude, not just because of his nickname, but it is pretty cool. I gotta say, guy named Rocket. I mean, come on. Now, that said, there's still like 10 other running backs that are all 5'10", 220, and they all are NFL ready. And that's the difference versus the past when you had you had to argue your way into drafting a Devon Achane, right? You were like, oh my God, there's so many. He's only 185 pounds. You had to force yourself to draft the guy. Now look how good he is, right? Now we're telling you got guys that are legitimate NFL size. They're coming in this year,
right? Achane
it depends. It depends. And on your draft, there was a league or two where he went at like the 110. Okay. But it was kind of like Jonathan Brooks this year. Okay. Some leagues you had to get him in the end of the first. Some he did fall into the middle of the second. Okay. That's how Achane was. But this year, and with all of the older running backs from the 2017 class, there couldn't be a more perfect setup for a shift here for this class to just be a huge influx into the league. Think about all of these offenses: Minnesota, Aaron Jones, Addabody, Arizona, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in another running back.
Yeah,
okay, Trey Benson, for all the talent Trey Benson has, he should have been getting more looks by now. James Conner's obviously better than all of us have ever thought.
Yeah,
because he is hanging on somehow, some way. But think about the other teams. I mean,
Cleveland's one. They'll have a high pick.
Cleveland for sure. Cleveland will easily take a running back. Cincinnati, San Francisco, any team in the NFL.
Dallas, Houston.
Right. Houston's a perfect example. Right. You can go on and on. Every single team this year could draft a running back in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and that could be their lead back by the end of next season.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm telling you the value is going to be at. It's going to be a process to try and dissect these guys. If you go on to Draft Buzz is one of my favorite sites, free site. It ranks all of like the top 40 or 50 players at each position, right? Mm-hmm. You can go down to running back 30 and they're good. They're good guys. And they all have the NFL size. And so I'm just super excited about the running backs this year.
Well, here's one to think about too. And the example I can give is Braylon Allen, right? Because he was one of the few in this last class that was like the prototypical size, everything you want, big body. Now he goes behind Breece Hall. Breece Hall's in the 3rd year of his rookie deal, and he's been plagued with injuries.
Yeah.
Is New York going to pay him after next year? Are they going to pay him?
Is Breece Hall going to want
to everything?
Dude, if I'm Breece Hall, if I'm Garrett Wilson, I am doing everything possible to get out of that place.
Right? There's that
They are
part.
Not going to resign.
Do they want to stay? And they're probably not. Braylon Allen's going to be a grab. So is Isaiah Davis. There's another great loose stash for you. Go grab Isaiah Davis. You've gotten to see little bits of him.
He caught a touchdown last week for some reason. Why? I don't know why Breece Hall isn't getting the work, but
he's capable because Breece Hall is always hurt. He's always banged up. He's never 100%. That's why.
He wasn't hurt
I
last
didn't draft him in any startups either. And he's a Jet. He's a Jet.
I'm just a little upset because I traded for Breece Hall in 2 leagues over the last 3 weeks.
Here's one that'll kill you. I could have traded for ETN or Barkley, and I got ETN. How about that? Yeah. F me in the A.
I think ETN is a scat back. That's the rest of his career, unfortunately. Yes. Speaking of him, his little brother will be coming out too, and he's keeper stash. Yes.
Whatever.
But where did he go?
I don't like the ETN.
Where did he leave?
He left Florida. I don't know where he ended up, but obviously
you'll see some of Trevor Etienne in the college football playoff.
2024 when Florida found itself. Clearly, he wasn't a part of the plans, which we're doing just fine at running back. My God, we're doing fine at running back.
Well, we'll have to wait for the 26 class, right? For somebody from Florida to come out.
That's right.
Or is that
right.
You got a real burner? What's his name? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Bob?
What's his name?
Washington?
Yeah. He'll be the 26 class, won't he?
I think so. Yeah.
Or is he
he'll be a junior in 26. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, they got some guys, man. They got some guys. More so than the girls' school down the street, right up I-75, turning on the I-10 there at Florida State. But coverage a little bit more full in Gainesville right now. And there's certainly a lot of hype. So stuff to be happy about going into the off season. And that's all
That's right.
That's all it is.
It never ends. It never ends here in the Birdhouse. We had a great discussion today. We'll be back tomorrow probably with some more for you as we look forward to the playoffs in your dynasty leagues and maybe some more stashes, maybe some more draft talk. I don't know. We can keep going on and on all day. Yes.
Maybe we do some stardom sit-em tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe do some stardom sit-em for like the de facto playoff game, final week of the season to change it up a little bit. I'll be ready.
All right. We'll look at tomorrow. We'll be looking at your flex options. How's that? Running back, wide receiver, flex options. Maybe we'll throw in a tight end or two as well. But for Matt English, I am the Birdman. And it's been a pleasure. Check us out on buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show and our Patreon, where you can find those 2025 rookie rankings at patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. Thank you for joining us today. Never stop working.